Kingdom Hearts, a Disney Final Fantasy crossover series about the power of friendship and one that I hold near and dear to my heart. It is the series that got me back into gaming as a whole and is basically the reason I got into YouTube as well. This series means a lot to me, and with the release of the Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind DLC, I thought I'd take a look back at why I love this series so much and the legacy it has left thus far. So join me as we explore Kingdom Hearts, the legacy that started it all. For this discussion, I will be playing Kingdom Hearts Final Mix on the 1.5 plus 2.5 bundle that was released for the PS4 and now the Xbox One. It is, in my opinion, the absolute definitive way to play this game, and the one that I recommend you play if you can. Not only is it the Final Mix version, adding new cutscenes, Heartless, a new boss, and adding more to the synthesis. Oh, and let's not forget the ability to skip cutscenes. It also runs in 1080p 60 frames per second, making it the smoothest experience you will have playing the first Kingdom Hearts. Also, it should be noted that I will be spoiling this game quite a bit, so be warned. Kingdom Hearts has to be one of, if not my favorite video game series. I like to think of each new game as a new chapter in a continuing story, as opposed to just separate titles. Think of it like this. While you could argue each game is like a new installment in a book series, I tend to see them as chapters in a larger book. Or like instead of a series of movies, I like to think of them as a series of episodes in an ongoing TV show, and I think that's why I like the style of the series so much. While a movie is nice, I tend to get a lot more enjoyment out of a TV series. While every game does have a start and an end to them, they usually are not self-contained and do tend to rely on the next game to pick up where the story left off. While the director of the series, Tetsuya Nomura, has said he really didn't intend to make a second one after the first one, part of me doesn't really want to believe that, since it ended in such a cliffhangy way. It's still strange to me that most of the future titles that further developed the plot ended up on different consoles, but I digress. Kingdom Hearts is a weird idea on paper. Combining the magical fairy tale world of Disney with the serious, almost tragic world of Final Fantasy doesn't really sound like a very good idea. In fact, it sounds like a branding and marketing nightmare if you ask me. But the game actually does make a very nice balance of this. With an almost perfect balance of a complex, serious story, but with undertones of friendship and lightheartedness, honestly, it does feel like a Disney game. But what about the Final Fantasy part? Well, the Final Fantasy characters are segregated off from the rest of the Disney stuff, besides interacting with Donald and Goofy. They are the ones that add a sense of urgency to your journey. Those characters are the ones that inform you of what the Keyblade is. They are the ones that inform you of the keyholes that you need to unlock so the Heartless don't get to them and cause the world to fall to darkness. They know about the greater world around you and feel more mature because of that. And I think that reflects the more mature, serious nature of Final Fantasy, as opposed to the Disney characters who are completely unaware of the other worlds and are just concerned with their own situations. And aside from one exception in Olympus Coliseum, you don't see the two groups of characters interact. That's not a bad thing, by the way. I think it was the right choice separating the two like that. What it sets up for is for you to be able to go to the Disney worlds and explore and experience those worlds, as opposed to just having one giant world with Disney and Final Fantasy cameos. However, that's only a small part of what makes this game so good. The Disney and Final Fantasy cameos are cool for sure, but what really makes this game so fantastic are all the original characters and situations. You play as Sora, a lighthearted yet naive boy who only dreams of seeing the outside world with his friends Riku and Kairi. And what a better way to see those worlds than with a raft, right? Yeah, however, their world becomes swallowed by darkness and the trio are separated, but not before Sora gets the Keyblade. When you finally do meet up with the Final Fantasy crew, they inform you of what it is you have and how it is that you are the chosen wielder of the Keyblade. While this is a chosen one story, I think Kingdom Hearts shows why those types of stories are so beloved. It especially works well in video game form. It puts you in control of the chosen one. It really shows in the beginning portion of the game. After a fantastic intro, you are put on some stained glass pillars with Disney princesses put on them. This is one of my absolute favorite moments in Kingdom Hearts, and dare I say gaming. I don't know, it's probably nostalgia, and it's hard for me to explain why I love this part so much, but I will try. It's just so mysterious and the atmosphere is just so well built here. How the stained glass glows in the dark with Dive to the Heart playing in the back. It really intrigues and draws you into the rest of the game you're about to play. I also really like the bit of not giving Sora a voice in this opening segment. Like, we're still in the dark about who he is and we haven't been properly introduced to him yet. It's a nice touch that when you actually do hear his voice, you know you've left a tutorial.
Whoa! Give me a break, Kyrie.
And all the way through, you're given choice after choice. And unless you've looked up how these choices affect you, you're really not sure what they do and you just go with whatever fits you. I think this really gives the game some personality. Still to this day, no other Kingdom Hearts game has really captured this level of atmosphere, and I don't think they ever will. Because this was the first game, there was a lot you didn't know going into it. Like maybe nothing if you were like me the first time I played way back when. And I was hooked the first go around. Oh, and can we talk about this cutscene with the Disney villains reveal?
That little squirt took down that Heartless. Who'd have thought it?
Such is the power of the Keyblade. The child's strength is not his own.
Why don't we turn him into a Heartless? That'll settle things quick enough.
And the brat's friends are the king's lackeys. Slug on the eyes, they're all bilge rats by the look of them.
You're no prize yourself.
Shut up!
Enough! The Keyblade has chosen him. Will it be he who conquers the darkness? Or will the darkness swallow him? Either way, he could be quite useful.
It's just such a cool cutscene, and it's just so awesome to see all the Disney villains plotting against you. While the Disney worlds don't have nearly the atmosphere nor mystery, they make up for it in personality. The game does its best to tie the Disney worlds into the main story, and this is definitely the best one to do it. While future games tend to feel like watered-down retellings of the original source material, with Sora, Donald, and Goofy put in as an afterthought with somewhat weak plot points to move the story along, these stories are made and built around the main story, making them feel more involved. And it's not just the fact that you have to find the keyhole and lock it, it's everything else involved. While some are done better than others, I think they all do a pretty good job. I think Agrabah has probably done the best. From Maleficent and Jafar in the beginning of the world plotting to catch Jasmine and find the keyhole, to Jafar talking about the grander plan to Sora, Donald, and Goofy, it really is the most well done world that immerses you in the overall story. Sure, these are also retellings as well, but like I said, they're retellings designed with the overall plot in mind. And while probably not as well done as Agrabah, I think Wonderland does a decent job as well, with you having to go gather evidence for Alice's innocence only to be denied when the Queen doesn't like it when you actually do prove it. This game is just full of stuff like that, from Ariel wanting to go see other worlds only to make a bad deal with Ursula that results in King Triton getting his Triton taken away and you having to fight a gigantic Ursula in Atlantica, to Jack in Halloween Town wanting to make the Heartless dance for Halloween only for the heart the doctor made to get stolen by Oogie Boogie. They really do all have their own sense of charm that, if you want my opinion, really hasn't been completely recaptured in future games. While Kingdom Hearts wouldn't be Kingdom Hearts without Disney, the main story is definitely not to be counted out. It's my favorite part of the series. I don't, however, think Kingdom Hearts would have nearly the presence it has if it wasn't for all the Disney, but I don't think I would be nearly as hooked on the series as I am now if it was just that. The original story and characters are just so captivating that people are saying that Kingdom Hearts could stand on its own if it wanted to, and I completely agree. I came for the Disney, I stayed because of the rest. While the Disney worlds are fun and all, you can't do that for the entire game. At some point, the story has to stand on its own 2 feet. And yes, the plot did rear its head every once in a while in the Disney worlds, like in Monstro, where Riku tells his plans to use Pinocchio to restore a lost heart, and in Neverland we learn that that heart is Kairi's, but it all comes to a head at Hollow Bastion. Can you name a more iconic Kingdom Hearts world other than Hollow Bastion? I mean, so much happens here. You get your Keyblade stolen and have to fight your way back with Beast. Because we've come so far, why would we quit now? This part really shows just how strong of a character Sora really is. Even when Dawn and Goofy leave and Riku, his best friend, runs off with his Keyblade and essentially humiliates him, Sora pushes on. And when you do finally confront him, you get, in my opinion, the single most iconic scene from this series.
I know now I don't need the Keyblade. I've got a better weapon. My heart.
Your heart? What good will that weak little thing do for you?
Although my heart may be weak, it's not alone. It's grown with each new experience, and it's found a home with all the friends I've made. I've become part of their heart just as they've become a part of mine. And if they think of me now and then, if they don't forget me, then our hearts will be one. I don't need a weapon. My friends are my power.
And while they have tried to recapture this moment, they really haven't been able to, and I'm pretty sure it's because of all the build-up beforehand. You have fought all across the worlds, making so many friends and connections, and when it finally builds up to this point, the speech is just that much more powerful. And Hollow Bastion is just full of stuff like this. Here is where we get the reveal of the true villain.
Tell me, who are you?
It is I, Ansem, the Seeker of Darkness.
You've been going all across the worlds, collecting his reports, learning more and more about this guy, and for him to be revealed as the actual villain, it's pretty satisfying. On top of that, he has taken over Riku's body, which makes for one of the most iconic fights in Kingdom Hearts. And once past Hollow Bastion, the gloves really come off, and you get to the end of the world acting as a heartless homeworld of sorts, showing off what a planet full of darkness looks like, and as you fight through, you get to the final boss, making for one of the most iconic final boss sequences. With great music and atmosphere, it really takes the cake. You know, I've just been saying that a lot. How many things in this game are iconic to the series? And this game is just that, iconic. Being the first game in a pretty massive ongoing series, you could say it sets some trends for the games to come. From the line "my friends are my power" to the trio of two guys and a girl, a multi-sequence final boss, this game just oozes influence. And to be honest, it's my favorite story-wise. The future games do tend to rely on the past and even the future installments for them to make sense. This one, however, stands on its own. But remember what I said at the beginning, how I see this series as one long story, like a TV series? Well, this game would really just be the pilot episode, setting up the world and rules and laying the groundwork for the rest of the series to come. Now, this game wouldn't really be a game without gameplay, and if you've heard anybody talk about this game, you've probably heard that it's aged, and you wouldn't really be wrong. Now, it hasn't aged so badly it's unplayable, just a bit clunky and a bit simplistic. The way the game works is you have a list of commands at the bottom left corner of the screen: attack, magic, items, and summons. And the way you select those commands is by pressing X or the A button if you're on Xbox. You can sift through them with the D-pad, and for some, if there are multiple things to select within the command, will bring up another menu and you can select it from there. This kind of makes the combat sound a bit clunky to control. However, you can shortcut 3 magic commands to 3 of the face buttons while you're holding R1 to make the magic flow a little easier with the rest of the game. But magic is the only thing you can shortcut. Unlike future titles where you can shortcut items and summons, here you are restricted to only 3 magic shortcuts. If you want to go for an item or a summon, you'll have to use the D-pad, which makes you take your finger off the analog stick, which in turn makes you stop. This is something that's in all the games, so you'll have to get used to it. But I will say that with a little bit of practice, it'll become pretty natural to you. But only being able to shortcut only 3 of the face buttons is kind of archaic in design. That extra slot really does make the difference, but it does work rather well and you'll be used to it before you know it. Sora controls pretty well in this game. He can walk, run, jump, all the things you need for an action game to feel good, and they all feel pretty smooth. There was a somewhat big emphasis on platforming in this game. Just about every world is full of platforming challenges. Even right from the get-go on Destiny Islands, there's a ton of platforming throughout the whole world. It's really the main way you'll be exploring the worlds, and I think it gives them a sense of depth. Your race with Riku is a mini tutorial to test your skills of jumping from one platform to the next, not to mention the quest for the items Hikari tells you to get, which can be found all over the place. The worlds don't just feel like differently styled hallways with enemies in them, but feel more fleshed out because of it. This game was meant to rival Super Mario 64, and I think that some of that influence crept its way into the game. This game is also the most context-sensitive game in the series. For example, these chairs in Wonderland. You can sit in them, and if you choose the right one, you will be rewarded with money and items, and if you choose the wrong one, Heartless will spawn. Not just that, but all kinds of stuff, from the boxes you can push and pick up, to this chest you can unlock by putting all these candles out. You can interact with all kinds of things in this game, and also the Trinities. These things never appeared again after this one. What they are little symbols on the ground that when you interact with them, Sora, Donald, and Goofy will do an action that will grant them a reward. If it is blue, they will all jump and money or HP or MP will rain down. If it is red, they will all smash one by one into where the red Trinity was. If green, they will all stack up on one another to reach something. If yellow, they will all gather around a heavy object to push it. And finally, if white, they will all touch their weapons together and a chest will appear. But like I said, none of this stuff was really brought back in future games, which I think gives this game its own sense of identity. The game is balanced between platforming and combat, and unfortunately both take a slight hit to balance them out. Neither of them are as deep as they could be. Future titles will put more of a focus on the combat and less on the platforming, but to its credit, it was the first game. They were experimenting. Kingdom Hearts was the first of its kind with what they did, but I do feel like they were somewhat following the trend of 3D platformers when creating this, hence all the platforming, but I digress. Sora's combat, on the other hand, I feel has aged the most. Sora starts with a 3-hit combo of a downward slice, a poke, and a spin finisher. Now you can add more to your combo within the abilities tab in the pause menu. You'll get all sorts of abilities, from making items draw closer to you, to a dodge roll, to several combo modifiers that improve combat, such as sliding dash, where Sora will slide on his Keyblade Mega Man style towards a far off enemy to hit them, or slap shot, where Sora will do a fast upward slice. You also can get better finishers like Ripple Drive, which depending on how powerful your magic is will be more powerful, and also it looks really cool and flashy. Or Xaneth Tukin, where Sora will slash forward and have a small chance of instantly killing less powerful enemies, i.e. anything that's not a boss. These greatly improve the feel of combat, and without them, the game would feel a little bit dull. Sora is a bit slow on the ground when attacking and has a good bit of cooldown on his attacks. Because of this, I've always felt like attacking in the air was the safest. The air combos are definitely faster than attacking on ground. This by all means does not make this a bad game. While yes, the game does show its age at times and is flawed, I still love it, and all the negative things I said are slight inconveniences at best and minor problems to deal with at worst. A flawed game, but still very fun and very playable. Now, the combat isn't just hack and slash, although it is about 85% of the game. There are other things, like the magic I mentioned. You get several spells throughout the game, those being Fire, which is a powerful shot of fire that goes to a single target. Blizzard shoots out several shots in front of you like a shotgun. Thunder strikes lightning on the ground in an area around the target. Cures you. Gravity creates a dark sphere that squashes enemies caught in it. Interestingly enough, this and Chain of Memories are the only games this one appears in. There have been different types of gravity attacks in future games, like Zero Gravity, which puts enemies in the air and stuns them for a short time, but nothing like this. Stop puts enemies into a state of stillness where they can't move and take on the damage you dealt while they were in that state after they get out of it. And finally, Arrow, which puts a barrier of wind around you and absorbs some damage dealt to you. Each spell gets upgraded as you go. Each gets 3 upgrades. If you follow the main story and do no side stuff, you won't get all of the upgraded spells, but you will have 1 or 2 fully upgraded spells by the end though. All spells consume MP, which is right above your HP. MP is interesting. You hit enemies to build up this little orange bar that once past a blue one plus 1 will get you another one, and so on. Each spell takes different amounts of MP. Some only take a little bit of the orange bar, others take 2 blue ones. Depends on how powerful the spell is. You also have summons. Summons are something you'll probably get and then forget about. What they do is summon a character onto the battlefield at the cost of some MP, and sometimes will replace Donald and Goofy. They all have a special attack or effect. Like Simba will do a charge roar if you hold down the triangle button, Dumbo will spray water out of his trunk and damage enemies, or a summon like Tinkerbell who will heal you over time until she leaves or revives you, but will not replace Donald and Goofy. Essentially what I'm saying is the tools that I mentioned above will be good enough to handle whatever the game throws at you. I will say this though, I did a Kingdom Hearts level 1 run on my Twitch channel and I found that summons to be very helpful with that, but the only reason I used them was because of a certain trick called damage swords that only happens on level 1. I did it! Dude, did you see that? Did you see how much damage that summon did? The Gummi ship sections really aren't anything to write home about. They are essentially an on-rails Star Fox-esque section that is much slower and much less entertaining than Star Fox, mind you. These were always some of my least favorite parts of the game, especially on subsequent playthroughs. They're just not very engaging, but enough goes on in them to where you have to pay attention, so you can't just skip it. There is one positive part about this though. If you go to the Gummi garage, you can build your own Gummi ship. Every time I play this game, I always tell myself that I'm not going to mess with it, but I always end up spending at least a few hours building and refining my Gummi ship. I don't know what everything does, but I do know enough to build a good ship. I also just kind of build a faster ship so I can get through the Gummi sections faster. I find it funny that building the ship is actually more fun than the Gummi sections themselves, but what can you do? And lastly, the music. Oh man, the music. Kingdom Hearts has some of the best soundtracks in gaming. While I do prefer most tracks from future titles, this game still has some bangers. Music in gaming, in my opinion, is just as important to the experience as the gameplay or the story. Music adds so much to everything and helps you feel what the developers are trying to present. There's not really a piece of music I don't like in this game. Yes, there are some that are stronger than others, but they are all very good and all add to the world around them, especially the Disney worlds. The music gives them so much personality just as much as their design. The music you've been hearing throughout this video is from this game, so that just shows you how good it is. The game in general is just full of personality. It's an icon of its time, and even though the gameplay is a bit clunky, it still has a story and a fantastic presentation, great music, and overall just a great experience. Kingdom Hearts means a lot to me, and I know that's a pretty cliche thing to say, but it's true. If my cousin hadn't have shown me this game back in 2009 when it was still just a PlayStation 2 game, I wouldn't be here talking about this. Hell, I don't think I'd be really into video games at all. I bought a PS2 just to play this game, and up to that point, I had a fascination with games, but just played them at friends' houses and the like, but never really had a good understanding of how to beat them or play them. But now I had a game to call my own. I was a middle schooler with all the time in the world during the summertime, staying up late into the night just to find those last few donations or to get those last few items for synthesis so I could get the Ultima weapon. I remember even before I bought my PS2, I went on YouTube and watched a long play of it, totally invested, and from there I started watching YouTube on a regular basis, and now I'm creating for it. I wouldn't be the person I am today without this stupid series about this spiky-haired kid running around with Donald Duck and Goofy across Disney locales. Yet here I am talking to you about it. I feel we all have that game that spurs memories of our childhood and all the good times and all the feelings we felt. But for me, those days are gone and it's time to make new memories and pave my own way. And that can be challenging at times. And sometimes I'm gonna feel down and out. But you know what? I can always look back on those good times and say, you know, maybe it's not so bad. And I hope you can do the same. Next time in this series, we'll be tackling the weird card-based spin-off Chain of Memories. I've been Travelopolis, and you guys take it easy. and stay awesome.